Hey everyone, Clint here. Before this gets started, I'm just letting you know about 45 minutes into this podcast, it's going to end in a weird way because our recording software stopped recording and we didn't realize it until we had been talking for about an hour and 20 minutes. So let's be honest, it's probably for the best. 45 minutes is way longer than you want to listen to us anyway. So just letting you know that's coming. Thanks for listening and hope you enjoy it.
Welcome back to the world's okayest mountain bike podcast that is very, very long overdue. I apologize, but we don't get paid for this, so you get what you pay for. That's all I have to say. But all three of us are back. I think we have a lot to talk about. Some of it's personal, some of it won't be, some of it's going to be things you've probably heard us talk about before, but we don't care because we're having a good time. But we're all here today. So, Kyle, say something.
Oh man, I've had a fun season racing, and I've had a fun season talking to you guys off podcast about all of it.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Kyle is the racer now. He's the racer of this podcast. I don't know what Ryan and I are. Ryan's the adventure guy that apparently gets lost because Trail Forks doesn't work.
I just got done riding out in Kansas City, and I literally passed the exit to go to my truck 4 times, and I could not find the exit.
Oh gosh!
But cool trail, Wyandotte County Lake Trails out in Kansas City area. Awesome trail.
What was that like?
Awesome. Dirt, very little rock, great flow. It's weird. Like, you almost don't feel like the hill's going down, but you're gaining speed. And then you're like, oh, I've gone downhill for a while. I've got to climb. And then you do this short little climb, nothing crazy. And then all of a sudden you start going back down again. You're like, does it ever stop going down? And there's like no elevation. I mean, the vert can't be 100 feet. But
maybe we're so used to riding trails that are either you are going up or you're going down and it's like gravelly and rocky. So you really can't build a lot of momentum on flat and uphill where we live, that when it's basically flat dirt and you're flying, you think you must be going downhill.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but it was awesome trail. Like, I was like, holy smokes, this is awesome. So anyway, yeah, got done. Sorry, I'm a little late, but grabbed some food real quick and excited to pod. It's been way too long, and our listeners have been asking, and we got some cool stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I don't even know where we should start. Should we start with a controversy that has been a subject of debate many times, but the three of us tonight are going to settle it once and for all for our listeners. They'll never have to wonder. They'll never have to think about it again. If they just listen to us, all will be well. And that is the question that has reappeared in our circles of, do you need a dropper post?
Oh goodness, we're going there. We're going to start. We're starting here.
Right into the pit.
Well, particularly in the context of, I guess, cross-country riding. Because, look, if you're going to argue that you don't need one for enduro or like a gravity-focused, I'm just going to assume that means that you completely drop your solid post down to the base to go downhill and just leave it down. But I don't think there's any debate about whether the dropper is a positive when it comes to like enduro racing. That's not a thing.
No,
but
that's not
cross country.
Yeah, cross country.
So I'm gonna let you guys go first before I chime in with my with the correct answer.
So I asked to discuss this, and we don't need to state why. It's probably obvious to many of our listeners.
Yeah, no, I'll tee this up for you, Ryan, because I want to tee this up for you because it's important that people understand why we're talking about this. It's crazy that we're talking about the necessity of a dropper post, right? Like, we all ride mountain bikes. If you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance you ride mountain bikes. We're talking about this because somebody told Ryan on a forum that a dropper post is unnecessary for Midwest trails, as if he thinks a dropper post is more necessary other places than the Midwest. Ryan, your rebuttal, please.
So It's not saying that somebody can't be fast without one, but you don't see the fastest guys in the world, enduro, downhill, going fast downhill without a dropper post. And that's because they can go faster with a dropper post. Right?
Well, I mean, to be fair, downhill bikes don't have dropper posts because they don't have to pedal them up.
Right.
But like
enduro
enduro or cross country even.
But a downhill bike, the seat is slammed to the bottom, so it doesn't matter. But it's out of the way because you can maneuver the bike. You can go downhill faster, all right? Descend faster. I'm not saying that there's not guys that aren't faster than me, you, or out there that don't run a dropper and don't kick our butt in cross-country races. And yes, they're fast climbers, but they could probably be faster downhill, and they could maybe use dropper post. That's their decision. I don't care. But for
those same guys would be faster than all of us wearing a 20-pound weight vest.
Yes. So, but to say they're not necessary, well, okay. Like, why? I just don't understand that argument. So I'm going to let you guys chime in because to me, necessary depends on the rider. If you don't want one, you don't have to have one. This is all for fun. But to say you just don't need one is kind of a old blanket statement, in my opinion. And yeah.
What really threw me off was the term unnecessary, right? Because so here's the challenge that we have, and I would say this stems from a couple bike shops historically and a couple of just people and things in the Midwest. There has been a debate in the Midwest, specifically because of my experience with St. Louis bike shops, of talking about the phrase or the term unnecessary or necessary when it comes to local trails. So, and that started with rear suspension and full suspension bikes are unnecessary, right? And then it was 140 mil travel bikes are unnecessary, right? And then now it's are unnecessary. And it's
you can run tubes. Tubeless is not necessary.
There's so many things that are unnecessary, right? We could all ride clunkers, right? We could all ride clunker single speed steel frames that weigh 30 pounds with tubes and everything, but we don't. And neither does any successful cross-country racer, rider, or anybody, or any bike is coming out. Like there is no $3,000 bike or up that comes without a dropper post, period. Like if you're spending $3,000 on a bike or more in this industry, every single one of them comes with a dropper post. It does not matter what your discipline is. If you're spending $3,000 or more, which is the entry point into nice bikes in the bike industry, every single one of them comes with a dropper post. Hardtail cross-country race bikes, full suspension cross-country race bikes, enduro bikes, play bikes, park bikes, free ride bikes, every single bike. Unless it's a dirt trail bike or a downhill bike, it comes with a dropper post. And there's a reason for that. It's not because it's necessary. Wheels are the only thing that are necessary for riding a bike, right? But it's absolutely crazy to think that you would make the term to say it's unnecessary for riding Midwest trails. Like, so is a suspension fork, so are 2.4-inch tires. There's so many things in that world that you could classify as unnecessary. But, like, what's the experience you're shooting for here, guys?
Well, I paid a lot of money for a philosophy degree. Let me actually use it for a change, because it's usually not, I think what happened here is what we are all assuming is implicit in the use of this word necessary or unnecessary is really sort of a subtextual meaning that is something like, if you have one, you've wasted your money, or you shouldn't have it because it's a waste of money, it's a waste of weight, blah, blah, blah. I think a word that probably the person that wrote it should have used would be something like, it's not appropriate, or it's not beneficial, or it's not a net gain. But like we've already discussed, to me, the difference is primarily between surviving and thriving. You could ride a 20-inch bike down any run at Shepherd Mountain if you really wanted to. Would you then be speaking truthfully to say you don't need a mountain bike to ride at Shepherd Mountain? Well, correct. What are we doing? Are we surviving, and that's what we consider success, or are we thriving? I would actually say, though, in the Midwest, a dropper post, the more undulating your terrain is, the more appropriate and beneficial the dropper becomes. If you live out west and your daily ride is an hour or two climbing a fire road up to the top of the mountain and then one big descent to the bottom, and like that's your day, you could actually get away without a dropper because you could ride a rigid and then slam the sucker at the top because you don't need to go. You're not going from climbing to descending to climbing, descending, climbing, descending, twisty, turny, twisty, turny, twisty, turny, climb. To me, a dropper is, a place like the Ozark Trail, the Three Sisters during the BT Epic. Like, that is the most appropriate place for the dropper because it's pretty steep up, pretty steep down, pretty steep up, pretty steep down. It's not sustained in any way, so you're not going to have time to get off your bike and drop a rigid down. It wouldn't be worth the extra time, but I really think that the use of the word necessary, like Kyle said, is just silly. So I think what we end up is every mountain biker, and I'm going to use the word every single person on a bicycle, will benefit while descending with a lower seat post. True or false?
True.
I don't see how you could argue against that.
No, see, I think that's true. And I think the argument we'll get is that there are a pretty good segment of riders that have never taken the time to learn to ride a dropper post. Now, that's the thing is that, but I think that's on them, not on the utility level of a dropper post.
Which brings me to... Oh, sorry. That was premise one, right? Premise one is everyone can benefit going downhill. I think where the pushback would be as well, there's not enough benefit and time to be made going downhill to justify the added weight going uphill. To which I would say...
But now you're talking racing. You're talking...
Well, right. That is
elite level racing, not trail riding with your buddies or casual after work rides.
Well, I would say racing, that's probably still not true because there is a lot of time. If you start thinking of percentages, there actually is a lot of time to be made descending. I mean, if you do a lap around a course, you climb as much as you descend. Like, if you're doing some kind of loop, your climbing and descending have to be the same.
I'm going to throw out something to consider here in this topic, and it's you and I at BT Epic. And I'm going to speak for myself here, but I don't feel like 620 is whatever. I mean, that's what I finish at, right? Six hours or whatever like that. But I probably would put myself on a limb and call me arrogant or whatever, but I would say probably maybe the top 10%, if that went down the hills as fast as you and I did at BT Epic. Therefore, what I'm saying is my time, had I not gone that fast downhill, would probably be another 10 to 20 minutes if I'm guessing.
Yes, I've said this many times. There are a lot of people that, not saying they have to go full enduro, but if they could just coast down the hills without dragging the brakes until it's really necessary, not pushing it, could take 5 to 10 minutes off their time without getting an ounce fitter than what they are right now.
So one of the comments in that was, I have fun going at my speed, and I'll smoke you going uphill. Okay, well, if you're a racer, and I'm talking about a racer who likes to go, why wouldn't you want to improve your downhill time too, and then you improve your overall time? Like, I just don't get that philosophy. And I've ridden plenty. I raced cross country up until I quit and started racing enduro for 3 or 4 years and did quite a bit of racing on a rigid post. So it's not like I haven't ridden a rigid post before, and I'm saying I've only ridden a dropper. I've ridden rigid posts for many years and could go downhill at a decent speed, but I can go much faster with a dropper post. So it's technology. It's technology that's proven. And you look at World Cup XC racers, and they're running them now. Why? Because they know that the downhill speed counts in the race too. So,
well, you're giving up all that fitness and effort that you brag about. You've just given up all your advantage. How many people had me in the first 4 miles of the BT Epic last year, had minutes ahead of me climbing for 4 miles that I passed just like that with no effort going down the first hill because they were stuck in the bottleneck.
Right.
Like, congratulations on all your speed climbing, but literally all that distance you just put on me disintegrated, and all I had to do was coast down a hill. Like, it does matter. To say it doesn't matter, especially racing, is not true.
We're talking about racing too, and I look forward to talking about the racing segment a little bit later in this podcast. But even just riding, it's not even speed that we're talking about. We're talking about a margin of safety, and I have no doubt at all that there is a significant amount of the mountain bike population that learn to get along very well with a non-dropper post. But that's the thing, is that it's not. It's like saying I don't need a calculator. I can do mental math. At some point in time, you get to a level of descent or you get to a level of math problem that you can't do in your head quickly, and that a calculator would help you do, right? Or any other level, any other bit of technology that's added to our life. Like, I don't need this because I can do this. It's like, sure. But wouldn't it be easier if you just learned how to do this? What if you just did long division on a calculator instead of trying to figure it out in your head? Like, I'm sure you can figure it out in your head eventually, but if you just learned how to use a calculator, your life would be so much easier and safer, right? Like, less margin for error. And that's the thing about riding with a dropper post, is that I have a bike that I ride, I mean, almost nearly equal as many miles per year as my dropper bikes without a dropper. So I have a single speed hardtail that I ride with no dropper. It's the same bike that I ride my Mac ride on and do most of my kids' rides on, but I ride that, and I'll do laps at that in cross country laps, and just basic stuff pretty frequently. Like, I probably do, I don't know, a few 100 miles a year, which is as much miles as I get on any other bike that I have. And I agree that I can get by without a dropper. The problem is that I am more comfortable descending steep stuff safely without a dropper. And so it comes back to, in my opinion, a lot of what you ride, how you ride, and what kind of riding you want to do. Is that I 100% agree. If I wanted to go do, flat level laps at the Castlewood or Indian Camp Creek River Flats, I don't need a dropper for that. I just don't. I probably don't really even care to have a dropper at Brommelsick, Indian Camp Creek, or anything without any steep descents. Like you can get by without it. You know what I mean? If you never really have to get behind your saddle on a descent, I could understand somebody saying, I don't need a dropper. But nobody's been to Shepherd and ridden Cannonball or Powder Keg and said, I don't really need a dropper. Nobody's ridden the Enduro at Klondike and Matson and said, I didn't really need a dropper for that. There's nobody riding that stuff on a rigid seat post that could honestly say they felt safer. Now, if all you're doing is gravel grinding in the woods, like if most of your mountain biking could be done on a gravel bike, I agree. You probably don't need a dropper. I'm down with that. I completely understand your reasoning for saying that. But to say that a dropper is unnecessary is such a wild statement to me, that like, you don't need a dropper if you ride these places, kind of thing. It's such a wild statement. Is that I don't care who you are, including my 6-year-old who is currently riding his bike with a 90 mil dropper, and I've watched his riding go through the roof in number of miles that he can do, and how comfortably he can descend descents with a dropper post. Is that he can ride and pedal now way more miles than he could, because he can put the seat up whenever he wants and sit down and pedal, and he can descend steeper stuff because now the seat's actually out of his way. So instead of him having to ride a post that is fixed permanently in between pedaling and descending, he can pedal at maximum extension, or he can descend at maximum, slam. And his riding's gone through the roof. And I think everybody could benefit from that if they learned how to use it correctly.
And so the other thing too, Kyle, that I'm kind of tee off what you just said about your kid is it's proper technique. Like, getting back over the bike and having that seat low is the only way to do that. And that's proper technique. I mean,
it's not just the straight line down steep stuff. It's because I guess if you get your butt behind the post and if you need your weight back that far, of course, I would argue, like Ryan said, that's bad technique because you don't actually need your weight that far back. Sometimes you just need your weight down lower, right where the seat is. So it's cornering. Like, you cannot go around corners as fast because you can't get your weight in the right spot.
Right.
Lower center
in the way. That's why your side knobs last forever on your tires. I guess there's one benefit. If you run a high post all the time, your tires will last longer because you will never be shredding corners nearly as hard as you could be. You just can't. You cannot lean the bike and get your body weight in the right position to get the tires gripping the way they're made to grip with the post up your butt. You can't do it.
I agree.
Right. No, I agree. And the thing is, I don't think it's a blanket statement to say that everybody needs a dropper post. I think it is a blanket statement that you can safely say everybody could benefit from a dropper post if you learn how to use it correctly in road different places.
Well, and it makes even less sense to argue against it if you're not racing. Like, if you just ride for fun and you're not racing and truly believe this race is going to be 100% won on this climb, I want my bike to be as light as possible, I know it's not as fast downhill, blah, blah, blah. If you're not doing that, then it really doesn't make any sense because you could be having more fun and you might not realize you could because it's been such a part of your life. You can't even imagine how it feels to ride without it, and therefore you can't imagine the benefits.
Right.
Because there's a whole world of riding technique that will open up to you that you've never done before because you've always had a rigid post. I kind of feel sorry for you if you don't know what it's like to have that seat post down and go around a high-speed flat corner where you're totally on the side knobs and your outside foot's down and your butt's real low because you were just like trying to get the perfect weight distribution to keep the tires holding. Like, that's fun. But I absolutely could not do it with my seat post 170 millimeters higher than what it is when I'm doing that. It wouldn't work. Just can't get my body in the right spot.
Right. No, I agree.
You're robbing yourself of joy. Makes me sad.
All right. So we're the okayest mountain bike podcast. So I think we squashed that. I mean, we're the experts, right? So.
Well, shoot, I get it. Look, unlike our friend Kyle here, I'm a respecter of budgets. So if someone says my bike doesn't have a dropper and I don't want to spend $200 on one, no argument.
No, I'm
a respecter of budgets.
I'm a respecter of people that just don't want one. That's fine. But to make a blanket statement that they're not necessary, it's
just wrong.
Yeah.
No, because like that term unnecessary brings you to so many places. Like multi-gear drivetrains, not necessary. Tubeless tires, not necessary. Carbon frames, aluminum frames, not necessary. Front suspension, not necessary. Like, can you pedal a bike with no seat, no grips around trails? Sure. Necessary is such a black and white word. You know what I mean? Like, when you start saying unnecessary, like, you throw a whole bunch of things in there. Like, I don't prefer a dropper post. 100% agreeable statement. Totally good if you don't prefer a dropper post. Throwing the term unnecessary out there is a wild accusation for mountain bikers to me.
All right, I guess we solved it, everybody. I guess we can finally move on. It's at this point in the podcast I'm going to allow Racer Kyle to get it out because the man has made he's been on the box more than I have, that's for sure. Unfortunately, Silent Bryce wasn't able to make it tonight, probably because I forgot to tell him. That would probably be the main reason. It's because I didn't invite him. We'll try to get him on sometime. He's also a racer now, but I wish he was on here so I could give Kyle a hard time about how Silent Bryce won his first race in Kyle's class, but they both weren't there, so it's not a fair comparison. But Kyle, tell us what you've been up to, buddy.
So this year, Clint and Ryan both bullied me into racing the BT Epic. So as a guy who pretty much like the only racing I'll do every year for the most part with any regularity is BMX racing. Like it's the same track. I've ridden it for like 15 years. I can race BMX. I can hang up in my class unless the Donaldson boys want to give me a hard time. But for the most part, in my class at BMX, I'm on the box every time I want to be, right? So this year, I got bullied into doing the BT Epic. I don't know why I let this happen, but it happened. And so I decided that if I'm going to be racing the BT Epic, I need to learn how to race. And so I need more time between the tape, and I need to do more races, more different ways, and I need to spend time learning how to race, learning how to my body reacts at limit, and just learning racecraft. Because like you guys can probably agree with me. I'm a pretty decent mountain biker, right? There's not many things that I can go that like there's not many things anywhere that I will say I'm absolutely not doing that. I can hack my way through almost any trail or course or feature or anything. I'll put it together eventually, right? But I have bad racecraft. I don't read tape well. I don't read lines at race speed well. I don't see AB lines places that aren't marked AB. I don't see Strava lines. I don't see any of that stuff. Like that's not just not part of the world in what I'm good at racing or what I'm good at riding. I don't look at trails that way. So this year, I told myself if I'm racing the BT Epic, I need to get good at racing before I go out there. And it's not to say that I'm trying to go out and win the BT Epic. Like we all know that's not going to happen. But in order to just prepare myself for a big race, I wanted to race more. So this is the first season, I mean, really probably since college, that I decided to myself, let's chase mountain bike racing. Let's be good at mountain bike racing, and let's put mountain bike racing at the forefront of my priority list for the year, and let's try hard. And so far, I think that's paid off. Every race I've done, I've been in a podium position. So I'm actually really excited about that.
Well, we would like to congratulate you, Kyle, on your big victory last weekend.
Yeah, that's true. We do like to give you a hard time, but
you won the mauler.
Really can't.
And it's probably all from your climbing abilities.
What's funny too? So we'll
run a rigid post in that race.
No. I ran my race bike in that race. So I had my 120 cross country bike with a dropper in that race, and I needed it. Like I would. There's no way I would have been in the position I was in without a dropper. Like I could have raced that race on my single speed hardtail, you know what I mean, without a dropper. But I raced my my 120 cross country race bike with a dropper. And my plan for that race was kind of unique in that I realized who I was racing Cat 3 with. I probably should have been a marathon just to get the miles and the timeline on it. I probably competitive wise should have been in Cat 2 maybe. But I have zero cross country racing experience that would allow me to believe that I should be in Cat 2. And then I also didn't have the timeline for my day. So we had family plans that day. So I had to be able to race and get home and contribute to the family throughout the rest of the day. Cat 2 didn't take off until later in the day, and it was a 2-hour race instead of a 1-hour race. So needless to say, I just didn't have the time to do it. But I've also never really been competitive racing. Let me put it this way. This past weekend is the first weekend of my life ever at 38 years old that I've ever stood on the box at all for a cross-country race, period. So I've entered cross-country races in Cat 3 in different categories, and I've never come close to a podium before. So
we know this for sure. If anyone doubts Kyle, he sent us a screenshot of his heart rate data.
I was just
we can say with certainty the man was trying.
He was working hard.
What
was your average, Kyle? It was about an hour, right?
Yeah, so I think it was just under an hour. So I did my race time ended up being 54, 53 minutes, something like that.
And what was your heart rate average?
176 for an hour.
Dude. Hey, you can't do that BT, dude.
I peaked here. Let me look it up. I peaked at 190.
And I think I did. Wait a second. Well, you guys are older though. You older fellas got to keep those heart rates down a little more than I do.
That's what I was trying to, if I'm being real honest, that's what I'm trying to rationalize. So yeah, so let me see. So yeah, so here's the thing. So here's the weirder thing. So my heart rate, I tracked there was probably 10 minutes of non-race time included in my heart rate. So my heart rate for the race was probably actually even higher on an average. I might have averaged nearly 180 for an hour.
That's about right.
With a peak at 193. So it's been fun for me though, because this is the first season of my life that I've watched heart rate data and used it and tried to think about it during the race day, right? So I never did Strava, I never did heart rate data. I literally would just show up I was like a drinking racer, except for I didn't drink back then at all. So I would just show up, ride my bike, pedal with my friends, slap some high fives at the end, eat my free burrito, get my stickers, and then I'd go home. There was no concept of finish. There was no try. There was just I'm here to support this race promoter's race. Mainly Nathan Goff's race. I raced the Indian Camp Creek or Brambles Lake Challenge for the past 5 years, but I would do it on my single speed. I didn't really care. It was just a thing to support Nathan and his race. And so I never tracked any of that. So now though, when I go for these rides, I've realized that if I can sit at 140, I can do 140 for foreseeably forever. I mean, not forever literally, but I mean I can hang at a 140 heart rate for forever. I haven't exhausted myself at a 140 heart rate yet, no matter how many hours I'm pedaling. So the problem is what I started noticing is that if I get over 180, I wear out quick. So now I kind of watch it, you know what I mean? So if I'm in a climb or I'm in if I'm on even a flat section trail that I'm just putting power down on, I'll look at my heart rate and see where I'm at. And I'll notice if I'm over 180, I know I need to tail it back a little bit and get myself back into that 150, 160 range. I would like to start averaging 160 for the day, and then have a peak in the 190s if I have to, but average 160 for the day. The averaging 180 for an hour straight is not a recipe for success. It looks like cardiac arrest to me.
So I just looked up my average for BT was 159 with a max of 2. And you're what, 2?
Hold on, what was your max?
192.
Okay. Yep. So I mean that's probably about right. So that's probably where I need to find my sweet spot is average 160 with a max in the 190s.
There you go.
Now,
great job.
So
I'm proud of you. You pushed yourself hard. I was like, wow.
So that's it. So that was my question. So Ryan, your comment about, hey, nice effort, that made me feel good. I'll be real honest with you that you said that. Is that heart rate data that I sent good or bad?
Well, you won't.
It is what it. That heart rate data would be the same whether you were a Cat 1 guy or a Cat 3 guy, because you're going as hard as you can go no matter what.
So hard, dude, and that's what you need to keep doing. It's epic.
If you were just fitter, you'd still have that heart rate. You would just have gone faster.
Okay.
Yeah. See what I'm saying? It never gets easier. It just gets shorter. That's
right, for all the listeners, since we didn't really say, I took first place at the Matson Muller. I've never podiumed a cross country race in my life. So racing in college to today at 38 years old nearly, I took first place for the first time ever in a cross country race. So I probably should start entering marathon class for no other reason other than to just start conditioning my body for long rides like that and just starting to get as many miles in under racing conditions as I possibly can. And I think I will. I don't expect to be competitive whatsoever in a marathon class, but I probably need to start conditioning my body to do 3.5 hour, 4 hour rides in marathon class. Right.
Yeah, I think that's my plan. Maybe minor tough if I can, but that's on a Sunday. I'll probably do.
I think I'm still.
And I think I'll do the 50 miler for the one-eyed dog.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do. So my kind of
shout out Matt Johnson, who says I never shout him out. It's his race. I'll be there.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna.
I heard he's shouting him out.
Okay, Ryan's trying to say something. Ryan, you're a little quieter than we are.
I'm gonna do Cat 2 at minor tough at lead belt, and then Probably at ICC as well, and then One-Eyed Dog, I'm going to go to 50.
See, that's a good plan. I'm probably gonna, if I do all three of those, which they're all on my calendar, so I'm hoping that I can like arrange my life around doing those races. But I think all three of those, I think I'm planning on marathon, just because I would rather. This is the hard thing about me and racing is that I enjoy racing when I'm successful. I don't enjoy racing when I'm not successful. So the other two enduros that I did this year, so I took a second place enduro and I took a third place enduro, which I was both really very happy with both of those. Again, like just I put in the effort and decided I wanted to be successful that day, and that's kind of what led me there. I don't have any desire necessarily or expectation to even be slightly competitive in a marathon class. And I think I would enjoy my day more if I thought to myself, there's no way this is going to go successfully. Just put the miles in, pedal, pedal, pedal. So I think I'm going to try to do marathon for the next 3 cross-country races just to start getting the race miles and hours in.
Yeah. I want to talk about something real quick here, guys. It's going to shock you that I would ever bring this topic up, but it is tire related. So I know that's a shock. But I was just thinking about this today, how it is really tough to be too heavy cross country when you really want to run cross country tires, but they absolutely cannot survive your weight, even when you feel like you're just riding around not doing anything. I feel like it's a real extra disadvantage no one talks about when you're heavy. Is not just that you're heavy, your body, but it forces you to run heavier tires, even for cross country riding. Found this out this past couple weeks. Tried to run. I had like the old version of a Maxxis Forecaster that I think came with the YT Izzo I bought that I had swapped out for something like immediately, and had a flat or something. I'm like, oh, I've got this tire, I'll throw it on. Threw it on. I literally made it like half a mile. 120 TPI casing. Piece of broken glass punctured it, which maybe it would have another tire too. Probably not though. I'm just like, well, that's not gonna, like, I can't trust that. And I have to look for tires. So this is going to be advice. We'll list this in the description as tire advice for heavier guys that want to ride fast. So here's some things to be on the lookout for. 1, no 120 TPI. That's threads per inch. It means the threads, the Kevlar that makes up your tire, they're literally smaller threads. They're half the size of 60 TPI threads because they fit 120 of them into every square inch instead of 60. So they cut easier. Now they're more supple and they ride better, and that's what I'll shoot. The pros, like the World Cup pros, have, like the Maxxis people have special 170 TPI tires made for them. It's crazy. But if you are, I'm going to go with 175 pounds or more, 180 for sure, 190 for dang sure, getting into my territory. Don't even bother. Just don't even bother. Just move along. Now, you might be able to get away with the 60 single layer 60 TPI casing if you ride smart. But if it's just 60 TPI without any sort of extra sidewall protection or something, you're on a time bomb. You might last the whole race. You might be all right for a good while. But I mean that's like your basic Maxxis EXO casing. That's what I ran for the Epic in the back. It made it. It was fine, but I went out like the next week and just ripped a huge gash in the sidewall, like unfixable. So you want a 60 TPI and then some sort of additional protection in there somewhere. Another thing you need to look for, this is very important, is sorry, but you cannot have a lot of spacing in the knobbies. Like, you need there to be lots of knobbies on the tire where there's not a whole lot of daylight on top where there's no knobby, because that's just a bigger target for a rock to be able to punch through. So, it's with all these things in mind. Little backstory here. I've been harassing Kyle for about 3 months now about what tires I'm going to try to run for the BT Epic this year, and he needs to order. We need to make an order, or I need to find some. And I have finally decided on the Specialized ground control front and rear because they roll fast, according to every review, but they have lots of tightly spaced knobbies all over, and they have an extra layer of sidewall protection in the T7. And Kyle and Ryan are looking at me on the screen right now like they are bored out of their mind, but they don't understand what it's like to be this heavy and deal with these problems. It's a real problem, okay?
You know that most days of the week you're like 8 pounds heavier than me, right?
Is that it?
Dude, you act like you're a Clydesdale or something.
I have a Clydesdale in the cross-country world.
You are not.
I mean,
So
I'm 180 more days than I'm not. I was 172 the other day, and I was very excited about that. For the first time in a long time, my pants fit me.
did you say
but
172?
8 pounds?
I was 172 the other day, thankfully.
No, that's
And you're
20
180
pounds. We are 20 pounds apart, not 8.
I'm 180. I guarantee you, after dinner tonight, I'm 180.
That's not real weight. I'm consistent, like 192 to 19. Like,
Okay, so you're 12 pounds more than me.
yeah. And here's another factor, Kyle. Kinetic energy is mass times velocity squared. So speed actually counts for a lot more than mass. And since I go a lot faster than you,
Shut up, Clint. You're not faster than me. How many podiums you got this season, Clinton? How many podiums?
1, Sketchyville, whatever they call it, downhill. And that was tough competition, man.
Atta girl.
I like the way they're scoring that, though. It's different. Instead of doing cumulative time, it's if you think of each downhill run like a moto in motocross, your position in that stage is what counts. So it didn't work out for me this time because I went 3-2, so I was third on the first stage, second on the second stage. Michael Fleeg went 2-3, but his cumulative time was lower, so that's how they broke the tie. So I got third, he got second. Jordan Scheidrich went 1-1. But they're keeping track of that for the whole series. So there's another race in July, another race in August, and they're like keeping track of each of your stage finish positions, not just adding up your time. And I think that's really cool. I'm not saying that everybody should do that at every enduro or anything, but if you think about, if you go, I think they should do it for some enduros because let's say you've traveled across the state or the country, and on the first stage you get a flat tire, and that puts you like 5 minutes down. Well, you cannot gain that back. But if you fix your tire and then you go win like all the rest of the stages, you could get second or third. You know what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't completely destroy your whole day and finish. Anyway, that's just a little side. We probably should have talked about that. It's pretty interesting to me.
I think for enduro, that's great.
Yeah, I dig it.
Super. And you're right. Like that way, you're not terribly punished by a mechanical, right? Like that's
right.
hard work, but it's really it doesn't do anything to dictate who the best rider is if you have a mechanical. So that kind of eliminates that. Hopefully, that's pretty cool. I like the idea. Still not racing enduro though.
We don't want you to. We're afraid for you. It's okay.
No, Ryan, we just need your world's okayest mountain bike podcast sponsorship points on the XC series, please. I did definitely when I registered for this race, I put Granada Racing / WOMTB PC.
No. That's a good one. Okay. Last thing I have. Have you guys watched any of the World Cup stuff this year, downhill or cross country?
Yeah, I watched how every single racer in the entire cross country Lenzerheide World Cup had a dropper post. That's what I saw.
And they're like sending whips off like little rock ledges and stuff. It's pretty sweet. It's fun to watch.
So did you guys pay for? Did you pay for? Do you have Discovery Plus already or GCN or whatever that is?
No, I didn't watch it live.
I have Discovery Plus somehow on my TV. I don't know. I don't think I pay for it though.
Okay. Can I get on that deal?
Give me.
I
Get
don't know.
password.
Yeah.
I have it.
I know. I haven't watched. I've only watched highlights.
That's me too.
I don't know who. So the British guy that's commentating, or the Scottish guy, he's been doing the enduro recap videos for the world, the EWS. I guess it's EDR now for years. So I'm used to hearing his voice. I don't know who the other guy they have in there, but this is no Rob and Claudio team. Like,
Oh, speaking of Rob, all right. So fun story. So outside of World Cup, I got to see Rob Warner in person announcing at the Bentonville Bike Festival. I could not believe it, but there was Rob Warner up on stage with Brett Tippie himself announcing at the Bentonville Bike Festival. It was amazing. I could not believe it. I heard the voice and I thought, no way. And then sure as heck, look up on stage. There's Rob Warner with Brett Tippie. Which was awesome. If you guys haven't been down to the Bentonville Bike Fest and you're a nerd about bike people and mountain bike people and just all of that, that was such a fun experience. Like as a whole, like we did so many miles that weekend, rode a ton. My kid picked up a sponsorship. It's the weirdest thing ever.
Hey everyone, I apologize, but it's at this point that we were using Skype to record this, and I did not realize it quit recording right here. We talked for probably another half an hour after this before I realized that it had quit recording, but you live and learn, so we'll try to do better next time. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you out on the trail sometime. If you ever see any of us, please say hi. We're about the most social mountain bikers there are. You're not going to interfere with any of us, trying to train or whatever. We don't take it that seriously. So we'd love to see you on the trails. And again, thanks for listening. Feel free to email us at okayestmtb@gmail.com. Give us a comment on our Facebook page, or just any way you can get a hold of us. We love talking about subjects that you want to hear about. And so if we're not talking about what you want, it's your fault, because we absolutely will if you just give us the suggestion. Thanks. Bye.